It's your girl, Qwanquita Wright, and I am so excited. We just finished up the book and brunch to launch my first book, Grace for This, the devotional. It's a 21-day journey for women who are growing through grief. The conversations that we had in here today was phenomenal. I want to let you know that GRACE is the acronym. It stands for Grief, Rest, Aid, Community, and Evolve. The reality of it is that we are experiencing a grief journey every single day. Every transition can cause you to grief, but are you leaning into your grief? Grieving is also exhausting, so I'm going to encourage you to actually rest. And when you're resting, rest is clarifying. You're going to learn what you do and don't have capacity for anymore. And guess what? You're going to begin to ask with more clarity about exactly what you need. That C stands for community, because when you start asking for help, your people who are meant for this next season are going to respond to your ask, and your community is going to change. And then lastly, when you go through that grace journey, you're going to evolve to the next best version of yourself. So I'm so excited for you to be a part of this journey. You're going to love what we're doing in this community. Follow Qwanquita Wright and follow Grace for This on Instagram and Facebook. Good morning, and good morning. Welcome. Greetings to our community. Greetings to our family and our friends. My name is Qwanquita Mason, and I am the founder of Grace for This, and I am the author of Grace for This, the devotional. It is a 21-day journey that helps you to grow through grief. And we are here today because we understand that grieving during the holidays is a challenge. So as you are coming in, drop something in the comments. I want to encourage you to share this out. We are live on our YouTube channel, and we are live on our Facebook page. I want to say shout out to our live audience today. I have two special sisters who have been connected with Grace for This, and they decided that they wanted to have the Live with Coach K experience. So we have a live audience. Y'all make some noise over there, y'all. Good morning. So I want to greet everybody. Hi, Vanessa. Hey, Aria. Hey, Alexandria. Hey, Deb. Hey, y'all. Hey, if you don't already, grab your journals, grab your notes. If you have a copy of the devotional, grab your copy of the book. We're going to have an amazing conversation. Coach Q and I are tag teaming today. And so before I go into my session, I do want to bring Coach Q up so that she can greet you all and just share a little bit about her heart around this topic. And then we're going to go into our first part of the session. So I'm bringing to the stage Coach Q. Good morning, Coach Q.
Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here. So I am Coach Q, also known as Qwanquita Wright. I am the CEO and founder of Focusing on Self, which is a life and wellness coaching business. And I serve as a director for Grace for This, as their over the wellness portion of Grace for This. And so just kind of my story briefly about grief. I never kind of understood grief, and I never really knew that I was really grieving. I thought it was just very normal things that were just happening in my life, and no one really talked to me about grief. But this has definitely opened my eyes to being able to grieve more than just the loss of a person, all the other things that happen in our life. So I'm definitely is a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to our conversations. Sending it back to you. Qwanquita, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Y'all show Coach Q some love in the comment. Y'all see how she was like, I'm turning it back over. Y'all clap for her, because she usually just drops the mic and walks away. Right? She usually drops the mic and walks away. So I want to ask you guys for help just for a second before I go into this session. I want you to, on your mobile device, I want you to go to the Facebook page. I want you to go to the Facebook page and share this live, or tag someone in it, because this morning I just kind of stopped and I said, Qwanquita, is this set up in such a way? Ladies, would you, what do I want? Would you bring me that charger, that white one right there? I asked myself, Qwanquita, have you done as much as you can do to ensure that people who need this moment have access to it? And when I looked at the stream, it was only going to go to YouTube. And so you guys know and understand that you have folks who do YouTube, and then you have folks who do Facebook. And I wanted to make sure that we are doing our diligence to ensure that as many people as would need the support of what we do inside of this space and for this conversation and support had access to it. So if you would go over to the Facebook page, go over to the GFT Facebook page, and to share it out. Why do I only see it?
Praise for this. All righty. So have yourself a merry little Christmas. I am tagging. Let's talk grief. Put a nice little message in it so they know what we're talking about. Believe it or not, y'all, my family actually has a homegoing service today, and we have a viewing for a longtime family and clergy and minister friend on tomorrow, and her homegoing service is on Monday. So I'll say a quick prayer. And I will go kind of into just the flow for the day. All right, so Lord God, we bless you, we honor you, we thank you. Thank you for today. We thank you for this time and this opportunity to come to you about the things that have grieved us. We understand that you are near to the brokenhearted, that you have a salve and a balm for those wounds that we are experiencing, and you have not forgotten about us in our suffering and in our grief. So Lord, I pray that you would bless this conversation, bless this dialogue, let it connect the way it needs to connect for every single hearer who has access to this space, who takes advantage of this space, who accepts the opportunity to grow through grief today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen. Y'all drop an amen in the comments. Drop that amen in the comments. Excellent. All righty, so let's get into it. My name is Kenesha Moselle, and I was introduced to widowhood at the age of 36. Kenesha, you only look 27. I know. I hear it all the time, right? But it was a beautiful introduction. And it pushed me into a place where my awareness about myself had to take a very strong pivot. And one of the things about my personal grief journey that I believe was most fruitful was that I learned about myself. I went on a journey to process what was going on with me. And in the journey of processing what was going on with me, I discovered that I had not known myself for those 36 years. I was aware of things that I like to do. I knew who I like to serve. I know what type of events I want to be in. I was a nurse. I worked at the bedside. Spinal cord injury was my specialty. I had been caring for people and nurturing people. At that time, it had been maybe 12. At that time, maybe 12 or 13 years, right? So when we're thinking about the things that we do and the hats that we wear. Good morning, Sister Virginia. When we're thinking about all of those different aspects, we categorize ourselves into these buckets or these boxes, right? Grief helped me to identify that I had taken characteristics and traits about myself and had made them an identity. And in that identity, I was not aware of who I was. I just knew capacities in different ways that I served, right? And so as you are here because you are managing a growing through grief experience, I want to, applaud you because you chose to be here, whether you registered and signed up and you're going to have the one-on-one with us later, or whether or not somebody tagged you and you're coming here and you're staying for the conversation. I want to applaud you. You are deciding to grow through grief. I do believe I have some GTG folks in the comments. If you are GTG, if you have been through our 21-day challenge, growing through grief journey, I want you to drop GTG in the comments. If you're in the room, you can snap, you can make some noise, you can say GTG, all of the things, right? So there's a thing that we do together. There's a thing that we do together, and we call it growing through grief. It takes a very intentional effort. That is my personal story. That is my very, very personal story. I had to make a decision. And then I see y'all, and in my growing through grief experience, I became a much better version of myself. So as you are here in this space and you are processing what it means to grow through grief, there is a model. There is a model that we have for going through grief inside of this particular space, right? And so I want you to write down on your journal or in your paper. Look, I have a journal behind me right there. I want you to write down the letters GRACE. I would say write them from top to bottom. GRACE. Grace. In this corner, you will see the word graced. You'll see graced. And the G stands for grieve, right? That G stands for grieve. If I were to put it into regular everyday language, I would just say, feel your feelings. Feel your feelings. The holidays is a very unique time because a lot of people have expectations. A lot of us have expectations of what's supposed to happen, what the atmosphere is supposed to be, what it should smell like. I need to smell pine. Everybody's supposed to be happy. There should be gifts everywhere. You should just naturally be excited. Like, there are so many expectations that have been set around the holidays that you don't give yourself permission to not feel those feelings. Well, when you are in a grief journey, it is very challenging to squeeze your present emotions into the expected emotions that people want you to have. There are ideas around what you should show up like. People want you to show up in a specific way. Have you all ever been into a space where it was nice and there was a situation, somebody said, well, what's wrong with you? Why are you not smiling? You all right? You can't be in here like that. Have y'all ever had a moment like that? Have y'all ever had a moment like that?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is because there's an expectation of the room. And while I love creating experiences in room, it smells amazing in here. Y'all missing it, but ask somebody about it later, okay? You don't have to subject yourself to the expectations of the room. Why? Because you're grieving. And it's a challenge, yes, but you're also growing through grief. And in growing through the grief, you do not have to make yourself squeeze into the mold of what that space requires of you. You have permission not to show up in the space at all. If you don't have to give to the space what the space typically requires, you have permission not to be in the room. Oh, I'm giving y'all shoulder. You have permission not to be in the room. Okay, so I say that to say, feel your feelings. Do not allow yourself to be pigeonholed into anybody else's expectation of you. Understand your needs. Know what's going on with you. Like I say, feel your feelings. Learn how to give words and language to your feelings so that you can honor and respect your feelings, okay? The next is the R. Somebody say rest. Drop that in the comments. Say rest. R stands for rest. I'm telling you, you're going to be exhausted. I had a very busy corporate K week. Corporate K is when I say, that's me who goes to work, right? Who has a job. Had a very busy corporate K week, but I also was feeling the weight of today's assignment, right? And because I am actively applying pressure to myself in my grief journey, and I'll tell y'all about that a little bit later if we have time. I'll tell you about it in the private link, right? Y'all got two links. You got this link and you got the private link, okay? So I have what I call like a pre-exhaustion. Like I get tired before the thing so that I will rest and I have energy for the thing. You will be exhausted. You're gonna be tired. Grieving is exhausting. Feeling your feelings is exhausting. Allowing yourself to honestly process things is really challenging. Fatigue is real. Mental exhaustion is real. So if you find yourself sleeping a whole lot, it's normal. You are not depressed. Let's touch on that real quick. Just because you are sleeping a little bit more in a grief journey does not default you into depression. Drop it in the comments. I am not depressed, period. I'm grieving. Write that down. I am not depressed, period. I am grieving. Let's differentiate. Now, you do have moments in your grief journey where you can experience depression. You can be depressed for a day, but you're actually grieving. And the moments of depression are a result of the grief journey. So don't misdiagnose yourself and don't let anybody else misdiagnose you. It is appropriate for you to experience fatigue. I see you, and you need to rest. It is normal for you to need to rest. You have permission. Come now. I'm about to talk about us. Black woman with the cape. Black man who feel like you gotta be the hero all the time. You need to rest. Especially if you are in a grief journey. You will absolutely need to rest because grieving pulls something else out of you. When you truly allow yourself to emote and feel those feelings that align with the experience you are having, you're going to be exhausted. So what do you do when you're tired? You rest. The next letter is A. A-I-A-D. Aid, or what I say, ask for help. Oh, goodness. Pride is real, y'all. Pride is so real. And if you are in a fresh grief journey, like, okay, if I have somebody here and you have experienced the loss of a loved one, asking for help looks a little different than it normally does. We already don't like to ask for help. Let's just talk about that. You already don't like to ask for help, but that type of help you need when you're grieving, it's a little bit different, right? I don't want to complicate it. I'm going to try to simplify this, right? It could be the things that are simple, like, hey, I'm really exhausted today. Can you clean the kitchen after dinner? You're tired. The fact that you made the food is a win. The fact that you made the meal is a win. Let somebody else clean the kitchen after it's done. That's a simple example. Now let's go to a more complex example. I'm feeling emotionally overwhelmed today. Are you available to sit on the phone with me for a while? I'm feeling anxious about the day, and I don't know if I'm going to have an emotional outburst or if I am going to be unable to do what I need to do for the day. Can you come sit with me for an hour? It's more complex because the rationale for why you're asking for what you're asking for is more than just a superficial thing. You have to have a level of awareness about that, and it is perfectly okay to make that type of request. Why? You're a human. You see this skin? Y'all see this melanin? It means you're human. Whatever your hue is, it is hue me. You understand what I'm saying? You are a human being, and it's appropriate for you to need that type of support. But are we exercising our voices to ask for the right types of support? In order for you to ask for that kind of support, you have to know some things about yourself. And I do hope today that this conversation is giving you more language around what it is that you need to begin rehearsing into your journey, because it's not going to be just for this one time. You're going to need this again and again and again and again and again. So that A is for aid. We're moving right along. C is for community. C is for community. Community is like my favorite word, y'all. I love it so much. Y'all was like, this chick is talking about grief. Why is she so happy? Because beautiful things come out of growing through grief. It can be very dark. It can be ugly. It can be very happy. But if you partner with grief, if you invite God into your grieving journey, I promise you something beautiful comes on the other side of that. And community is one of the things that has been birthed on the other side of my grief journey. Like even y'all see the colors, right? So even wearing green, right? This is the old version of me, right? Y'all see what I'm wearing today? Sis got on the green. Bow. Look, one of our sisters who's in the live audience today has on her Grief Growing Gold shirt, and it's in green. Our other sister has on her pink dress. Why? Because we have an aesthetic that matches the work we're doing on the inside, right? Nobody's an AKA. Sorry, guys. It just so happens to be pink and the green. And maybe on another live one day, we'll talk about that. Maybe on another live, another day, I will tell you how these colors came to me, right? Everything has, an impact to the story, right? So the community piece is amazing. Why? You're growing through grief. You're going through grief. I have 8 minutes. You're growing through grief and you're changing, right? When something grows, does it look exactly the same. When something grows, it changes shape, it changes form, it could change its preferences. If you've ever seen a tree or a plant growing and the sun moves, it will adjust itself and it'll lean around because it wants the light, right? And so look at yourself as that flower or that plant that is growing and making adjustments, because the direction that you need light now is different. You don't get it facing head on, you get it from the side. And so you will see yourself beginning to grow and to turn. And in that growing and turning, your community changes. What you need to thrive changes. What nurtures you, what pours into you is actually changing. Right? The people who you want to have conversations with are not the same people who are completely unaware of themselves. They are not honest about their feelings. When you processing your feelings all the time, real time, all the time, it's a little irritating when you're talking to somebody who act like they don't have feelings at all. They just may not have arrived to that level of awareness, but it's also an indication of which part of your community they can be in. They may not be able to be in a community for you that can help you with the wellness work. Everybody can't have every conversation, and that is okay. But in your grief journey, in your grace journey, you will learn who that community is that you can have that conversation with about, I'm missing my daddy today. You know, oh, I'm finna cry. I heard a sound today and it reminded me of my husband. I saw this color and that was his favorite color. These are the ornaments that we would put up together. I'm not putting them on the tree this year. Those things are very real. Y'all hear it? It's coming. There it is. There are honest conversations that you need to be able to have with certain people. And you're going to see who your community is for the you that is birthed post the grieving journey. Deep breaths. We take them. We take them, we take them, we take them. I want to talk about the health aspect of it, because I know in parallel to some of our journeys, we also have challenges in our health. And so when you have challenges in your body, my husband was a quadriplegic. I don't have anything in here that would allow you to see him in his chair. My husband was a quadriplegic from the neck down, right? Can you imagine the health challenges that we navigated and worked through? I told you I was a spinal cord injury nurse. Go watch my YouTube channel and the stories there. Whole thing, promise you. But there were still moments where the joy was intentional and it was authentic, despite the immobility, despite needing or requiring somebody for those things. And there was a beautiful community. I'm finna cry for real, for real. There was a beautiful community of people who supported him, who was a quadriplegic. People who knew him as an able-bodied, walking, handsome 6'3" person could not be community to the paralyzed from the neck down him. It's two different people. I can imagine he had a growing through grief journey, right? He wasn't, he was a black man. He really had a conversation like we have now. He wouldn't have this conversation. He was not that person. And it might have been too hard to have that conversation. That sometimes it's hard for us to have certain conversations because having the conversation brings me down from the place where I know I can survive. Some things we have a healthy level of avoidance around. There is a healthy level of avoidance that you can have, but when it becomes harmful to you, you're in denial and it's not safe. Not only is it not safe for you, but it's not safe for the people around you because you don't make decisions well for yourself or other people. Then you become dangerous. So growing through grief is important because you don't want to, over time, put somebody else at risk because you're not being honest with what's impacting you, right? So with growing through the grief, and especially for the holidays, if you don't have it, don't show up to nobody's house on Christmas Day if you don't have it. Stay at home, rest, recover, send the text messages, make the phone calls, because sometimes going into those places puts you at risk and other people at risk for creating a moment for them that's dark that they can't recover from. I don't want you to feel like you're risky or you're scary. I want you to know that you have to identify what you need, what you don't have, what you do have, and what you can give in the moments where the opportunity is presented. Growing through grief also means that we choose well, and our community will allow us to do that. Your people who rock with you for real, for real. Notice I'm not saying your friends, your pastor, your church members. I'm not calling titles. I'm calling community, because community is an experience that you have with somebody. It is a support. It is a love that you have with somebody, right? The last letter is E. I'm doing good on time, y'all. It's 10:27. Coach Q is coming up next, and I know she's gonna give us some really powerful tools and steps from the the licensed clinical perspective. But the last letter is E. The E is evolve. Oh, I feel more tears coming. I'll be all right. I do this. Can y'all tell I do this on a regular basis? The E is for evolve. You have permission to change. Some people will want you to stay the same person that you are. You changed the moment that person left. The moment they went in a grave, the version of you that was attached to them existing in this side of the earth went into. You are not the same anymore. But you arriving to who you're going to be on the other side of that grief journey is something you have to take ownership of. Thank you, iPhone. It is something that you have to take ownership of, because there's another you that God intends to show up in the earth. And this you has been wounded, has been hurt, has been left. This you has some very specific kinds of voids. This you is managing the hurt. This you is giving yourself permission for your tears, even if you got on makeup today. This version of you does not have to fit into anybody else's mold. This version of you is discovering the new mold that you're called to. All right. So that GRACE acronym is grieve, rest, aid, community, evolve. You are graced for this. And Christmas, the holiday season, 2024 can be a very unique one, but I am here to remind you that you are graced for this, and growing through grief helps you evolve to the next best version of yourself. So I'm going to take a deep breath, and we're going to bring up the other professional. I was going to say the professional, but I have to remember, even though I'm Coach K here, I am a master's educated registered nurse. And so I don't always wear that hat, but I realize it is a skill set. And so I am glad that I can share the space with Coach Q. If y'all are good, drop a 1 in the comments, okay? If you are good, drop that 1 in the comments. Everybody take that deep breath. I see y'all. Everybody take that deep breath. I see you. Thank you, Yolanda. Thank you, Yolanda. And we are going to transition up to Coach Q. All right, Coach Q, you have the stage.
Okay, so I'm going to start by taking a deep breath, with everyone just taking a deep breath, maybe closing your eyes, right? And so in the therapy world, we call it like diaphragmatic breathing, and we teach people how to breathe very slowly. So the way that this goes is you kind of inhale, holding your breath, counting to 3, then slowly exhale, right? And then do it again. Inhale, and slowly exhale. Okay. What that is supposed to do is to decrease some of the distress that you feel in your body, because our breath controls everything that happens in our body. I mean, the breath is so powerful. And the reason why I wanted to start there, because I think that was very heavy. And one of the things that Kenitra said that really resonated with me is that I am not depressed, I am grieving. And I'll tell you, even as a licensed therapist, when I experience grief, I didn't have the language to give to it. It's different than knowing what's in a textbook and being able to now sit in that experience and having to apply those things to your own life. Yes, I was well versed in all the modalities that came with therapy and all of those things. But what I was not well versed in is applying those things to my own life. And I had experienced a lot of grief in my life. With the first thing being, as like I served as a behavioral health officer for a unit. So in about 3 years, we had maybe 18 suicides. So that's a lot. So that's a lot of memorial services. And then, but what really probably shook my life was that in July of 2021, I lost my cousin Rashida, who I was super duper close to, who had been just like huge in my life. And I mean, we were like sisters. And I think that was the thing that taught me I did not know how to truly move through grief, that I was really kind of avoiding all of the things that came along with grief, because that's what I saw, that's what I learned. And I was in a profession where you go out and you take care of others, but no one really comes in and take care of you. And so I had to really learn how to now take care of myself. And so I'll briefly just kind of share some things that I applied in my own life as a therapist. The first thing that I really started to do was to acknowledge that I was not okay. So that meant I was going to have to take off this tough girl mask that I had spent years wearing, so that others could essentially not feel uncomfortable with my emotions. And so I had to really take that off, which means now when someone asks me, "Hey, how are you doing? Are you okay?" I truly was saying to them like I'm not okay. Like I'm having a very difficult time. Now, that's where community comes in, because not everyone can receive that. Hey, not everyone knows what to do with that, because typically when we're asking someone how they're doing, we want to know, but then again, we don't want to know. And so we're looking for people to say, "Oh, I'm okay. Things are good. I'm blessed and highly favored." And those things are important, and those things are probably true. But there are moments in our life where we are really just not okay. And we need to tell somebody that we are not okay. And so therefore they know how to extend some assistance to us. And if they don't, maybe they know someone who can extend some assistance with us. So I really acknowledge that I was not okay. That was the first thing. And the second thing that I had to do was I had to almost like reframe how I looked at the loss. Is that typically when a loss happens in our life, even where if we physically lose a person, we lose a job, financial loss, relational loss, whatever the loss may be, is we look at it as a very negative experience in our lives. And does it change our life? Yes, it does. But if we were to just sit back in a moment and just think about, even when we lose someone, that sometimes that person was in such pain that their life wasn't even pleasurable to be lived anymore, that they wasn't enjoying where they were in life. And so we usually want to keep people there for not for themselves, but kind of for us, because we are afraid to step into something that is new without that person. And so I had to look at it as like, what did she really bring in my life, and what did she leave me with? And there were so many positive influences that she left me with, and so many things that probably helped me pivot into a next season of my life, a next purpose, and a next plan. Because had that not happened, I probably would have still been a person who masked all my true emotions, wasn't really honest about when I was grieving and what it was doing to me and how I felt. Because again, right, I'm in a profession where you go out and you take care of everyone else when something happens to them. Very rarely does someone come in and take care of the caregiver. Right? That's the caregiver who goes out and take care of everyone else. So really reframing that and looking at, what did I learn from that loss, is going to be important. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy, because it's absolutely not easy. There are going to be things that come up in your life where it reminds you of that person. And there's a moment of sadness that is attached to that. And that is okay. It is okay to have an emotion. So I think we've also got to give ourselves permission to feel things. Not permission to stay stuck, but permission to actually feel things. And there is a difference. And then I gave myself permission to get unstuck, right? Because I can remember where I would literally sit in my room right? And no one probably knows. I was sitting in my room and I would just like cry because I was just sad, and it was just like loss after loss after loss after loss in my life. When you're when you're of a profession where one of the things that you see that happens a lot is that people take their own lives, and I know people have various thoughts and feelings about that, but the reality is that it happens. And when you are in that profession, you sometimes can just kind of move through those things. You become very desensitized uh to loss, to death. You almost look at it like, okay, well, death is inevitable. It's going to happen to everyone. And that's true. It is going to happen to everyone. But that doesn't mean that I still can have an emotion that is linked to that. And so I really had to practice on getting unstuck. And so the way that I got unstuck was I I didn't isolate myself, but I separated myself from spaces that did not allow me to truly be transparent about what was happening in my life. So that meant the end of some relationships. That meant a shift in some relationships. That meant a shift in my relationship with how I had developed a relationship with God, truly looking at him like as my father and being able to go to him, being able to surrender and, sacrifice and just really cry and be transparent about what I was having and what I was going through in my life. And so the change in that relationship also brought about changes in my other relationship, how I learned to navigate those, to say, if this is going to be someone that is important in my life, then I'm going to have to learn how to be honest with them about what's happening. And we're going to both have to practice receiving each other, hearing, right, each other's emotion, listening, and really caring for the other person in a very, very different manner, different way. And I'm truly grateful for the Grace for This community, because it allowed me that space. And I had never had that space in my life. Yes, I know people go through grief, but most of us, once we lose something, we just go on like, okay, well, that's fine. Like everyone's telling us it's okay. This happened to everyone. God only gives God gives these battles to his strongest soldiers, or that type of jargon that doesn't help someone move through their emotions. It probably honestly encourages them to suppress and to avoid those things in their lives. And so I had to dig up a lot of things, because yes, that loss was what was right in front of me, but it was so many other losses that had happened in my life that I just had refused to look at. And so that loss let me see that you're going to have to deal with this stuff, or you'll never truly be well. You'll never be healthy. And I think we talk a lot about what it truly means to be well. It doesn't mean that I can put on some makeup and I can get my hair done cute and I can look cute. That's not truly well, because the outside can appear well and the inside can be dead. And so even though I had physically lost a person, I had a long time before that lost something internally. And so I was walking around alive, but dead inside. And that is a very dangerous place to be in, right? Because when we are dead internally, what we do is we avoid and suppress everything that happens in life. And so you become not only unhealthy for yourself, but you're unhealthy in every environment that you enter. You're unhealthy in every relationship. There's unhealthy things about you that come forth in every interaction. And so I had to heal from the inside, right? From the inside, and be less focused on what I look like on the outside and focus on what people could not see about me. Right. And that was the inside things that were happening internally. So I really developed some very healthy coping skills. One of the things that I did was I journaled a lot. And I would just put down my very raw, honest, transparent emotions and thoughts. Right. And people may be saying, well, you're a therapist. Of course, you know how to navigate those things. There's something very different, right, about having to navigate those things, like truly having to navigate those things, really having to move through them, put it down on paper, look at it, sit in that space. And I learned to sit a lot in silence. And so I spent a lot of time with God, but I spent a lot of time by myself. I really did. I spent a lot of time by myself. And I was less focused on the things that I had once been focused on in my life, which means there was this new version of me that was coming forth, and I did not have language, right, to put together to explain this new version of myself. I just knew that things were shifting in my life because they had to shift. And if they did not shift, then I would be the same person that I had always been. And there's no way that we can stay the same, right? Because the same person that we've always been does not work into what comes next in our lives. And more importantly, being the same person in every season of your life does not teach you how to work through things, right? But more importantly, doesn't put you in a place where you can really fulfill your purpose and plan for your life. Because being well isn't just for us. Being well is for everyone that we come into contact with, because every interaction is intentional. So if I am unwell, then every interaction that I come into that I'm meant to pour into that person, or that person's meant to pour into me, I'm so unwell that I can't pour into them, and I'm so unwell that I can't receive what they're supposed to pour into me. Because when we are not well, we're blinded to the things that we really need in our life. And so we think we are receiving what we need, or but most of the time we're not receiving what we need, because we don't even have any idea what we need, because we are not well. And so this just became a conversation that I had to have with myself transparently. And sometimes we think it's difficult to be honest with other people, but the majority of the time it's difficult to be honest with ourselves. Think about how many things you tell yourself every single day that are definitely not true. I'll tell you, I got convicted the other day, about just some things that I hold other people accountable for that I have not held myself accountable for. And one of those things that we typically hold other people accountable for, doing the hard things in life. Or like we'll say to other people, like, you really need to work on yourself. And most times we're not working on ourselves. So I started to hold myself accountable, right, in a different way. Like, I held myself accountable for doing the hard work. I held myself accountable for being transparent. I held myself accountable for getting unstuck. I held myself accountable for unmasking, right, these emotions, and understanding that I did not have to be Superwoman. Now, needless to say, that again, that was not easy. I wish I could tell you that this was a very easy process and that I'm 100% through the process, but I am not, right? Because this is a journey. And we never know when something's going to come back up for us. But granted, it feels very different, right, to us. It impacts us very differently, because we've developed these new skills and these strategies to really, really move forward. And then there was this upward turn that happened in my life when it comes to the grief. As I started to adjust to living life without people, right, without certain things in my life, I really had to explore what had been the healthy and unhealthy attachment with that. So for example, sometimes when we lose people, we're like, obviously, it's a loss, so it really hurts. But sometimes we've had very unhealthy attachments to that person, and that person has enabled this version of us to show up in places because they loved us so much that they oftentimes did not confront us about things in our life that we needed to work on. And so when we lose that person, it feels very like overwhelming, right? And a part of that is the unhealthy attachment that we also have to lose. And if you think about, even a relationship that you've lost in your life, and it felt like, there was no way you'll be able to move through this. Like, you felt like it was the worst thing that could have ever happened in your life. And some of that is because we've developed this codependent relationships, and we don't oftentimes realize it. But because we're unwell, right? So whether that's from traumatic experiences, life circumstances, whatever it is that contributed to that, sometimes we develop just an unhealthy attachment to something or to someone, and essentially, that we felt like that person has filled what we presume was a void in our life. But no person is designed to fill a void in your life. That's only for God to fill. And so that also impacts how we grieve. If that attachment has been extremely unhealthy, there's the loss is almost magnified, because we have no idea, how we now replace all of these other things in our life. And they are not to be replaced, right? You are not to idolize a relationship. Your most important relationship is with our Father. That's the most important relationship. And so that was another thing that I had realized, that there were situations that I went through in my life. And then instead of me like praying about them first, I always called Rashida to get advice. Like, okay, what should I do? And she would say, let's pray about this. But God taught me that that very thing that I was calling her for, and she was saying, let's pray about this. That's what I needed to be doing. I should have been able to go to the Father for myself. Yes, other people can intercede on my behalf, but I should have been able to go to the Father first for myself. And so that loss also taught me that. It taught me to always go to the Father first. Before I pick my phone up and I call anyone and I ask them, well, what do you think I should do? Here's what's going on. I learned to go to the Father first. And that has really helped me to grieve some other things in my life as well. Because we want grief to come and be gone, right? Because we're looking for things to happen so quickly in our lives that it happens and then we're over it. That's not how grief works. And so grief could be something that, right, that we're just feeling about a situation for maybe 5 years. But again, it's the how it impacts us that really shifts. So initially, when we feel grief, we can feel very distressed, very overwhelmed, inability to function. You may find yourself just all of a sudden something happens and you're like crying. You don't know why you're crying, or you're angry, or you're in disbelief that this could even happen to you. You're trying to, if it's like a relationship and maybe you're getting a divorce or something, you could be like trying to bargain with that person. Let's make this work. You feel a lot of pain, guilt, shame. All these things come up with grief. We feel them in our body. And so now, we feel things in our body. We're tired, we're fatigued. So now it impacts our decision making. So we're making poor decisions. We're becoming more impulsive. Like all of these things are happening in our life. So it's not just like grief, period, right? It's grief, this, comma. And so be very careful that when something happens in your life, you're not looking forward to for the emotional response of it to end right there, to put a period at the end. Because if you do that, right, what you probably are doing is now suppressing it, okay, avoiding it, and going on to the next thing. And life does not work that way. As much as we would like for it to, it does not work that way. And so if you're experiencing grief, right, start by acknowledging that you're grieving. And again, as Kenitra said, if there's a space that you don't feel healthy to show up in, I do not care, because it's the holidays. Don't go. Right? Don't go. Even if that's with your family or your friends, we have the power to say no. Now, that no can feel uncomfortable if you've never had to say no before. So grief could be you're going to grieve this version of yourself, and maybe your inability to say no is really attached to your people pleasing. So maybe that's something that you're going to have to grieve, that there's this shift happening in your life, this new version of yourself that's being formed because of the losses that you've had in your life. And so now your balance has to be different. Your boundaries, this integration in your life of things have to be very different. So this may be the first time in your life that you've been able to truly say no and stick with your no. But it's okay not to go. Right? You don't have to go to everything. You don't have to go to every family function. You don't have to go everywhere your friends invite you. You don't have to go to every work function. You can say no, because no one knows how you're doing more than you. And we're going to have to take the mask off. I think I was talking to Kanisha the other day, and I texted her how I started to see that me masking thing was really my pride. And so I'll explain that when it comes to grief, is that I felt like, how could these things really happen to me? I'm like, I know this may seem like, well, you're human, but the reality is I felt like, how could these things happen to me? Why would these things happen to me? Why would this happen to Rashida? Like, she's young, she's vibrant, she's invested in the community, she loves God, she loves all these things. Why? How? And God said to me, she was tired and her work was done. She was tired and her work was done. And that was something that I had to hold on to. And but I also realized in that the way I was asking God why and how was showing that I didn't believe in him in the way that I should believe. Because it's like, why did I think God did not know best? God always knows best. But for some way, because I wanted to avoid emotions more than likely, is that I had decided that I almost knew best. I almost knew what was best for a person. And that sounds so arrogant coming out, but a lot of times we do that. Think about it when, someone's like, they've been diagnosed with acute or chronic death, and they're like, I don't want this treatment. I really just want to be able to live, the rest of my life, no matter how long the doctor says. And we try our best to convince the person to do other than what they want. How do we know that they have not gone to God and God had said, okay, this is what you should do? But we think we know best, right? And that's because we're so afraid of actually experiencing a loss sometimes, because we've made loss, and not that it isn't tragic and it isn't traumatizing. Sometimes we made loss be such a bad thing, but sometimes there's an upside to loss. Think about the things that you may have lost that moved you into your next, that birthed this part of you that you did not even know existed, that gave you the strength, that helped you dig deeper into the word of God, that pushed you to a next opportunity, that made you do the work, right? That made you, that loss changed how you view relationships, how you view yourself. Think about the upside of that loss. And that's something that I've also implemented in my life when loss happens. Like, okay, God, what are you wanting to do next? Right? That this loss had to happen, so this could be next. And sometimes that I needed to learn something about myself. And so the loss needed to happen so that I could learn something new about myself, that I could walk a different walk, that I could speak different language, that I could pour differently, I could pray differently, I could fast differently, I could live differently. And therefore the loss needs to happen. That's sometimes hard for us to accept. It's very hard for us to accept that there's an upside to a loss, and that sometimes it needed to happen because God needed to move us and we wasn't listening. Right? I remember something happened in my life with a relationship, and God kept, like, he warned me, this is not healthy. You need to end it. You need to let it go. And I was like, now I'm going to make this work, and God slammed the door in my face. And it was painful. It hurt. And I was honestly, like, I grieved that in a way that I had ever grieved a relationship before, to be honest. But it was an upside to that loss, because it birthed something new in me that was probably just laying dormant. So sometimes a loss will birth what's been laying dormant in you. And that's a very powerful thing to happen. And the growth that happens after a loss, right, allows us to move, allows us to go to the next, and really pushes us forward. We can't allow loss to just keep us stuck. I know bad things happen, right? Yes, it hurt when you lost that person. Yes, it hurt when you got a divorce. Yes, it hurt when you lost that child. Yes, it hurt when you lost your job. Yes, it does hurt. And it should hurt. And your feelings are valid. They are very, very valid. I'm not saying they're invalid. They are very, very valid. But do you still want to look up 5 years from now and you're still thinking about when your job from 5 years ago let you go? And so therefore you spent those 5 years doing nothing but ruminating on what happened 5 years ago. Imagine being stuck in that way. A lot of times that's what happens to us. We're stuck on what happened to us 2 years ago when someone didn't do the right thing by us, or, we lost someone. I'm telling you to grieve, right? Give yourself permission to grieve, but give yourself permission not to be stuck in the grief. Don't get stuck there. And I'm not saying that it's going to be hard to get, it's going to be easy to get unstuck, because this is not easy, right? This is not an easy conversation. If it was easy, it would be a conversation that we're having all the time. But there's not many spaces that have this conversation. And not even in our church do we have the conversation about grief a lot of times. A lot of times what we do is, someone loses someone, we're there, we support them through, when we hear about the laws, the week of the services, and then months later, we've moved on with our life. We've forgotten about that person now has a new life, right? Their life looks so different after that loss. But it's like we moved on. So I'm part of your community when it initially happens and I hear about it, but then I detach myself from you as when probably in the space that you need me more is afterward, right? Months later, weeks later, that's when you really need your community. And oftentimes we detach from that time. Why? Usually has nothing to do with the person, just kind of what to do with us. Of like, we don't know how to have a conversation about it. We don't know how to reach out. We don't know how to, like what that person needs because we did not know what we need or no one role modeled that to us. And that's one of the beauties of the grace for this community is because we're all role modeling what it looks like to go through this. Right? I can tell you what I've read in every single book that I've read it in, but the applicability in those the applicability in my life changed me because now I'm not just only telling you you can make it through this and it's going to be ugly sometimes and some days are going to be better than others and some days you're going to be waking up and be like, God, I just need you to hold me together so that I can make it through these many hours of work. I just need you to hold me together so I can go to the grocery store without crying. I need you to hold me together so I can just sit on my couch and drink some coffee. God, I just need you to hold me, to nurture me, to love on me, and to cover me during this time. That's how we should go to the Father. That's how we should go when we're really grieving and something hurts us. Right? Yes, we ask for strength and we ask for all of those things. But sometimes strength isn't just like your ability to push through. Sometimes strength is your ability to unmask. It takes a certain strength to unmask those experiences, unmask those emotions, and share those in a safe space. So let's talk about how do we get to the right community. One, again, you got to be transparent about what's happening in your life. No one can help you if they don't know you need help. I think about all the times that I needed help, and I'm like, well, no one was there for me. And then I have to be honest and say, well, no one even know you needed help because all you do is walk around like you got it together. So no one ever knew you needed anything. So therefore, people thought, as they have always thought about you, is that you could handle it. Now, what I'm learning is to tell people what it is that I need, to be transparent with myself about what I need, and then to communicate that to them. And if I don't have the language to give, to be like, look, I know I need something. I don't know what it is, but I tell you right now, I feel sad and I feel overwhelmed, and I just need somebody to help me. And give that person the opportunity to be a part of your community. And then we're going to learn to give ourselves some grace, right? Because you've had 10 losses, your 11 losses may feel a little bit differently than the other 10. My grandmother used to say this thing that death feels different every time. And I never understood that. For the longest, I never understood that. But now I understand it. It doesn't matter how much you've lost. It can all feel very differently. And we're educated on the stages of grief, but we don't move through those stages like 1, 2, right, 3. We don't move like that. That's not how you go through the stages of grief. You could be in one day and then 5 the other day, because that's how life happens. Because not only are you grieving, but you also have life that's happening behind that. So we're going to give ourselves a little bit of grace. We're going to connect to community. We're going to give ourselves some grace. We're going to honestly like start asking for help, and not only asking, but accepting the help, not just asking for it, but also accepting it. So being receptive to the help that's being offered and not looking for it to look the way you would help someone, because that person may not be able to help you in that way. Be like, well, I would have done this. Well, you don't know what you would have done transparently. You think you know what you would have done, but you may not have an idea what you would have done. And then we're going to continue to acknowledge how we feel about what we've lost. Continue to acknowledge it, right? To accept that this is part of the grieving process, and it's okay if I'm not okay. I know we say that, but it really is okay not to be okay. Give yourself permission to not be okay and not try to show up in every space as a person who have it together. I know there's some spaces where you've got to show up and you've got to have it together, right? And in those situations, don't go into that space without praying first. Right? Don't go into that space without praying first. Always go to the Father first for yourself. Start there for yourself. So as you move through this holiday season, regardless of what you're grieving, I want you to know that there is an upward turn to the grief. Yes, it's going to be hard, but there is an upside to the grief. And you have a community that is here for you, that's going to love on you. Grace for This is an amazing, amazing community. And so stay connected to us, and we will continue to help you move forward through this. Oh, Kenitra, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Okay, I think we have this Kenitra. I think we have this Kenitra.
Mic check 1 2 1 2.
Okay. So while Kenitra has stepped away from the camera, okay, I was about to.
Okay, yeah. Look, y'all know we got the broadcast inside, and I was like, if I talk, it's going to echo throughout this entire room because we were streaming you on the screen inside of this space, right? So this is our GTG for the holidays, y'all. Thank you, Coach Q, for it was a gentle jugular. It was a gentle jugular, and I believe that we got more than we bargained for today. A lot of the times we think that the grief work is centered around the person who was lost, when the grief work actually is centered around who I'm becoming after the loss. So thank you for taking that time to unpack that. We both have really impactful personal stories with grief, and we do not come here as professionals to talk to you. We come to you as humans who have some training that qualifies us, but not more than our actual lived experience. So of course, we want to invite you to connect with us if you are interested in being a part of this space and continuing to grow through your grief. We want to invite you. You can text Journey to 203-547-2962, and you can get connected with us. You can visit our webpage, and if you want to join our community, that is how you get involved. These are conversations that we are having on a regular basis. This is what we actually do. And because we have been consistent with doing this, we are experiencing such great results in our lived experience, in our human experience. God is blessing us tremendously. And we have decided to take our experience, our lives, and our professional training to give back to the community. So thank you. For those of you guys who did register, we're going to go over into that private Zoom now, and we're going to do a little bit of what they call it, the shadow work, right? They say the shadow work. So we're going to get into some journal prompts and then some depth conversation, right? So if you are just so happen to catch this on the stream, we pray God's blessings over you, and that you would allow growing through grief to be a choice that you continue to make so that you can become the next best version of yourself. So remember, grieve, rest, aid, community, and evolve. We thank you big. Coach Q signing out. Coach K signing out. Remember, you can connect with us by texting Journey to 203-547-2962. God bless you, and we love you big. So I register. We'll see you in the private room.
Are you a woman of faith ready to become the next best version of yourself? My name is Qwanquita Wright. I'm the author of a new book called Grace for This, the Devotional 21-Day Journey for Women Growing Through Grief. Let's go on this journey together. Grieve, heal, and build.